Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends. Welcome back to our Entitled People series, where you'll hear stories about people who truly believe that the world revolves around them and that nobody else matters. Friends, in today's episode, you're going to hear 7 ridiculously entitled stories. The first story features a Karen who uses her sick daughter as an excuse to get a half-price discount. The second story involves a customer who thinks she owns people. The third story is about a customer who likes to sneak into a store just before closing. And the third story is where a lady wants an employee to risk her job for a bottle of wine. My friends, I hope you stay with the stories today and hit that subscribe button for future episodes. Let's dive in. I'm in my early 20s, and I work part-time at a retail beauty supply store to supplement my disability income. I just went through a 9-month-long battle with a very aggressive form of leukemia. Earlier today, a lady came into the store, and just by her appearance and behavior, you could tell she was going to be self-entitled and somewhat rude at best. She was overly tan with bleach blonde hair, super long bright pink acrylic nails, and carried a Chanel bag. She drove a Mercedes and headed straight for our selection of hair extensions, browsing for a few minutes. She was talking loudly on her cell phone the entire time and didn't even acknowledge my greeting as she entered the store. Then she started snapping her fingers to get my attention, like I was a dog. I guess she couldn't be bothered to tear herself away from her riveting conversation about why her friend's coworker's boyfriend was having lunch with another woman to speak to me like a human. I walked over to her and politely asked what she needed help with. She wanted me to unlock our hair shelf so she could browse as she liked. We usually keep it locked because many items are over $100 and are high theft items. I told her I wasn't allowed to unlock the entire shelf, but if there was a specific color she wanted to look at, I'd be happy to unlock it for her. She started huffing and giving me dirty looks. Eventually, she settled on one of our priciest sets of 100% human hair extensions. Before I rang her up, I let her know that all hair products are absolutely non-returnable and non-exchangeable for any reason once she walks out the door. She said she understood, so I rang her up and told her the final price plus tax was close to $200. She went ballistic. She said, but my daughter might have cancer, so I should get a discount. I asked, so you're buying extensions for your daughter because she may have cancer? She replied, no, they're for me, but it's really stressful having a sick daughter, and cancer will be very expensive to treat if she has it. I thought to myself, ma'am, I'm very aware of how expensive cancer is. But I told her, we don't offer illness discounts. She then said, if you had a loved one with cancer, you'd understand. I'm a really easygoing person, and I usually let things like this slide. Heck, I even enjoy making cancer jokes, but I absolutely despise when people use others' illnesses to gain sympathy and benefits. My mother had a really tough time dealing with my illness, so I know how truly heartbreaking it can be. I told her, I have cancer, ma'am, so I know what it's like and how devastating this type of illness can be on the body and mind. All 4 of my grandparents died of cancer, and my stepmother is battling breast cancer for the 3rd time. It's metastasized into her lungs, lymph nodes, and brain, and they're giving her less than 2 years. So yeah, I know how it feels. If I were to give a cancer discount, it would be to the people fighting it, not to people trying to gain my sympathies. Your total is $200. Would you like a bag? There was silence and a stunned look from her. She was very sweet for the 2 minutes it took her to pay and leave. Okay, friends, when I first read the title, I thought this story was going to be about a woman who didn't want to pay full price for a wig for her sick daughter, just wanting a little break. I could understand that. But oh my goodness, as soon as the story progressed and we found out that her daughter might have cancer and the extensions were for her because chemo is expensive, that is absolutely disgusting. I'm so glad the employee gave her a piece of her mind. Maybe next time she'll think twice about using someone else's illness to get a discount. Next story, I work at a big box retail store that charges a membership fee to shop there. Due to the fee, some customers act very entitled, which is to be expected, I suppose. Here's an interaction I had last week with an entitled woman. I got a call on the walkie-talkie saying there was a problem at one of our healthy food aisles. I quickly made my way there and heard a woman yelling at a fellow employee, whom I'll refer to as Ryan. She shouted, "What do you mean you don't have any more quinoa?" Ryan replied, "Sorry, ma'am, I've checked the computer and it shows we do not have any more in stock." She snapped, "You people are so useless. What's the point of paying to shop here if you're good for nothing?" That's where I stepped in. I said, "Hi there, as Ryan already told you, there's no more quinoa. Is there anything else we can help you with?" She replied, "Yes, "Get me some darn quinoa." I told her, "Sorry, ma'am, there isn't any in the aisle, and someone's already checked to see if any are stuck. If you come back tomorrow—" She cut me off, yelling, "No, I own you. I demand that you bring me quinoa now. I don't care if you need to go to another store to get it. I want my quinoa, and I want it now. I pay the price, and you are no more than my maid." The amount of anger coursing through me was incredible. I've never dealt with someone this hostile and ridiculous in my life. I'm usually pretty calm, but after being mistreated like this, something inside me just snapped. I said, "Just because you paid to shop here does not give you the right to act like a stuck-up jerk." She was stunned, her jaw dropped, and she turned completely white. This lasted no more than 5 seconds before she turned bright red and screamed, "I'm going to have you fired! You can't talk to me like that!" I walked away expecting to be fired, but I didn't care. I felt so relieved. About 15 minutes later, I found out my manager had heard the whole thing. She revoked the woman's membership and banned her from the store. Ah, sweet justice. Friends, this story makes me so happy. I'm so glad the manager heard everything and decided to revoke that crazy lady's membership instead of reprimanding the employee for talking to a customer like that. Good on you and your manager for sticking up for the store and yourself. Next story. I've worked in a supermarket for 10 years. You get your share of Karens, and the only thing you can do is smile politely. But what I hated more, after an 8-hour shift and having to close up the supermarket, were the customers who came in 5 to 10 minutes before closing and shopped like no one wanted to go home. I was scheduled for every Friday and pretty much every Saturday closing shift. The store closed at 8 and we weren't open on Sundays. On Saturdays we had to take out all the cash drawers and manually count all the money, but we could only start doing this when all the customers had left and the front and back doors were locked. The customers who came in 5 to 10 minutes before closing and took their sweet time shopping were despised with a passion. My shop had a procedure. We would remind customers at 15 minutes, 10 minutes, and 5 minutes before closing that the store was about to close and to please pay for their groceries. Normally, we had very few incidents. This one, however, is burned into my memory. It was a Saturday. As head of the cashiers for the night, I had the honor of making or breaking the day for our beloved customers. I had to deal with my fair share of Karens, male and female, and I just wanted to go home. I followed the procedure and asked one of my fellow cashiers to set the front door and stay there to handle any customers. At 2 minutes before closing, a man came running to the door. My colleague asked what he needed and reminded him that the store was about to close, so he wouldn't have much time. He said he just needed formula. Since he said he needed formula, we thought he'd be in and out like the Roadrunner. But nope. At 8 minutes past closing, he was seen in the cheese section of our store. At 15 minutes past closing, he was in the wine section. What the heck does he need that for? What kind of baby does he have? Several of my colleagues went to this man to get him to the counter. He scoffed, huffed, and said he was a paying customer. My fellow cashier was the last one to approach him, and that's when he went too far. He yelled at her, cussing and making a high school student cry. Now I was furious. So I did what I always do in these situations. I took off my store shirt, pulled out a neat jacket I keep for emergencies, and put it on. You see, when you're wearing the store outfit, you're seen as a lesser being. But behold, I changed my outfit, and suddenly I looked like management, and my word became powerful. The real manager saw this happening, popped out a huge grin, and went to the back to watch the security cameras. I donned the magical outfit and approached the guy. I told him in no uncertain terms that the store had been closed for 15 minutes, and that he'd been asked multiple times to go pay for his items. He started to huff and puff himself up like the big bad wolf. I told him he was only allowed entrance because he said he needed formula, so I gave him a choice. He could go now and pay for the items in his basket, or I would take the basket, grab the formula he claimed to need so badly, and he could pay for that. Alternatively, he could choose not to do either, and in that case, security would love to make his acquaintance. Either way, he would leave now. He tried, and oh boy did he try, to threaten and intimidate me. He failed. He left with his cheese and wine and many threats to call corporate. The next week, he came in again. This time he encountered me at the door. And what did he need? Formula. So I brought him to our service desk, went inside, and brought out a single pack of every kind of formula we had. I asked him which one he needed. He didn't say a word and left. Don't mess with our closing times. I love the part where the employee says she puts on a different outfit just so he'll take her seriously. She's absolutely right, though. Some people see themselves as better than store employees and only respond to upper management. When I first read this story, I thought when she was changing her outfit, she was going to go civilian and like karate chop the man or forcefully throw him out of the store. I don't know what made me think that maybe, oh, I'm no longer a store employee, I can now kick your butt, sir. Next story. A bit of backstory. This happened roughly a year ago, way before the lockdown. I was working in a small chain corner store about a 5-minute walk from my house. I don't live in an unsafe area per se, but it's not the kind of place where you could leave your bike out in front of your house either. So, I got to see a lot of not-so-nice people, including a regular whom we'll call entitled woman. This woman would come in just to buy cans of alcohol and scratch cards. Once she even called me and my manager good-for-nothing idiots because we wouldn't let her in past closing time. And what did she want to buy? Tobacco. That's it, just some tobacco. But this is a different story. On Sundays, we weren't allowed to sell any alcohol after 10 o'clock due to limitations on the store's license. Every other day was fine, just not Sundays. We never had a problem with this, other than some people rolling their eyes, but we never had any arguments, until one evening at around 10:45 at night. The entitled woman came in and tried to buy a bottle of wine. I told her we couldn't serve alcohol, expecting her to just sigh and put it back. But no, oh no, she was adamant that I had just made this rule up out of the blue to spite her. She said, I've bought alcohol from here at this time before. Other people serve me. I was a little shocked at this point, but I reiterated the alcohol rules. She still argued, claiming she buys alcohol this late on Sundays all the time, which I knew was a lie because I always worked Sunday evenings and had never served her that late. She started to get livid and demanded I call the manager. So, I did just that, and of course, my manager said the same thing. At this point we had a line, and I was starting to get angry. The store closed in 15 minutes, and I still had to do a quick clean and count the cash in the tills. But this woman was holding up everything. I said, I can't serve you the alcohol. If I scan it through the till, it'll be saved in the system that I sold alcohol illegally. The store could get fined, I could get fired, and it would be on my record for the rest of my life that I sold it illegally. She replied, ugh, fine. How about I just leave the money here and you can scan it through in the morning? I have enough money. Just let me take the bottle now. My manager and I were completely gobsmacked. She really thought she could bypass the law like this, and it was honestly ridiculous. Luckily, it didn't take long for her to get the memo and leave, but she did leave in a huff. She didn't shout or scream, but I did hear her mumble that we were both idiots and should be fired as she left. I just can't believe the entitlement of this woman. I was only 19 at the time, and she wanted to risk my job and give me a criminal record so she could have a darn bottle of wine. She even came in the next day when I wasn't working, and she never apologized to my manager for the horrible way she acted. The entitlement. I don't care if the store gets fined and you lose your job. I need this bottle of wine so I can drink it tonight. Next story. Here's a brief backstory. Back in March, I, a 25-year-old female, and my partner, a 27-year-old male, bought a house. It's a big deal for us, so we're glad we managed to pull this off, especially right before the pandemic got bad. It's a livable fixer-upper, and the lady who lived here bought it in 1967 and was the only owner before us. It keeps us busy, and that's worked out really well since we're home so often. Now to the event with the entitled mother. In May, my big project was pulling out some nasty bushes that had taken over a huge chunk of the front yard. It was hot, I was sweaty, and I was digging out the roots and throwing the branches. Since I was right up front and making a pretty drastic change to the yard, people noticed. Most neighbors stopped by, said a quick hello from their cars, and drove away. But not the entitled mother. The entitled mother pulled up in a shiny black Suburban from the opposite side of the road. She parked the wrong way and rolled down her window. I'd say she was in her 50s or 60s, with gray-white bob-cut hair. I stood up and paused my music. The following conversation isn't exact, but it's pretty close because it was just so entitled. She said, "Hey, did you just buy this house?" I replied, "Yep, just moved in last month." She asked, "Did you know the family?" I said, "The ones who sold it?" "Not really. We just got lucky they chose us, I guess." I was trying to be nice, but I was kind of put off that she asked none of the typical neighbor questions. She then said, "Yeah, my son really wanted this house. He grew up in this neighborhood, you know." I replied, "Oh darn. Yeah, houses move really fast right now." She continued, "He spent his whole life in this area. He really deserved to stay in this neighborhood, you know." I told her, "Yeah, that's too bad. I was having major what the heck feelings right then." She then asked how much I offered for the house. I wasn't about to tell her the details, so I said, I offered over the asking price. We were proactive. She said, well, my son really wanted that house. I started to feel quite awkward with this whole situation and just wanted to shoo this lady away. I said, well, I'm sure more houses will go up for sale around here. She replied, well, that doesn't help him now, does it? He had his heart set on that house. I just shrugged and resumed cutting roots to try to give her a message. She said, you're probably flipping it. He would have loved it. I said, no, we're not. We're staying long term. She told me, yeah, right, and she didn't leave. I was wondering if I should go inside or something. She just kept looking at me, expecting me to say something. I kept cutting at a root, and she said, so, is it just you, or did your family help you get it, and would you sell it? I was getting pretty short in tone and said, my partner and I bought it together, no. She said, well, my grandkids would have loved the yard. A yard makes a house a home, you know. I didn't look up at her and said, my dogs will love it, especially when I'm done. The entitled mother huffed and said, seriously, my son wants to live here. I just scoffed, pulled my root out, threw it on the pile, and felt her eyes watching me. Ready to be done, I said, well, have a good day then. With one last glare and she sped off, leaving a quite annoyed and bewildered me in my dirty glory, mulling over what the heck just happened. Did this freaking lady just try to guilt-trip me because we bought a house her son wanted? Indeed, she did. It was definitely the most unwelcoming interaction I've had since we moved in, and I haven't seen her since. I kind of have a feeling this is a situation where the son actually lost the bidding war fairly and thought nothing of it, while the mom decided to take matters into her own hands because she wanted it for him. I'm so surprised she didn't say, oh, but where will my son live now? Because, you know, entitled people tend to do that to get what they want. Next story. So, I've just started university in Swansea, Wales, in the UK. I live and grew up in London, England, and we don't get many Karens in the UK, especially in London, because people just don't have time for that. That being said, I would have expected this interaction to be more likely in London than in Swansea. When I came here, I assumed that, being a predominantly white area, I would encounter some racism, being of South African descent with brown skin. But I was pleasantly surprised to find that everyone is really nice, helpful, and much more welcoming than in London. Anyway, I'm at the big Tesco in town buying some food and a load of alcohol for the flat. I'm talking 2 bottles of Bailey's, a large bottle of vodka, white rum, an 18-pack of Corona, Jägermeister, as well as Coke, Red Bull, and soda water. It's not enough to fill a bar, but it's still a fair bit for one person to buy. As I'm paying at the checkout, I have my driver's license and ID ready to show the cashier. I'm 19, yet I still have a pretty babyish face, and I'm pretty small, so I always expect to get ID'd. But for some reason, the guy doesn't ask to see my ID. I pay and start loading my shopping back into my trolley. As I'm doing so, the woman behind me, with her teenager, maybe 15 to 17 years old, starts speaking to the cashier. Karen alert! She starts whining and scolding him, asking why he didn't check my ID. The young cashier also seemed to realize this wasn't going to be a fun interaction and responded by saying that I've shopped here before and he knows I'm of age. I don't know if he was playing along or not, though, because I don't recall seeing him before. The woman continued to berate him, telling him that he sets a bad example for a kid because it shows him that he can get away with buying drinks underage and using fake IDs. At this point, I'm done loading my shopping and decide not to engage and leave. She instantly forgets the cashier and blocks my way, asking me to show my ID and my bank card. I politely tell her she has no right to, and then she loses it. She doesn't scream or raise her voice significantly, but her tone becomes incredibly aggressive, and she starts pointing her finger at me, accusing me of buying alcohol while underage. I tell her that I am of age and have every right to purchase what I just did. And if she has an issue, she can go find the manager because she, a fellow customer in the store, has no jurisdiction over me. The cashier himself decides to call for a manager and apologizes to me. I notice the kid now, and he gives me a stern look, but I'm pretty sure it was just to side with his mom, and that he was also uncomfortable about the whole ordeal. The manager comes over and asks the cashier what's wrong. Lo and behold, the Karen interrupts the lad and starts berating the manager. The manager listens a little, stops her for a second, and then turns to me and asks for my ID. I give it to him, and he checks it. He's happy, but as soon as he goes to hand it back, the woman snaps at him with an expectant look on her face and says, "Sorry, but I'd like to check it myself." Not even a please, He gives it back to me anyway, which triggers a visible storm of anger within her. She proceeds to block his way and starts scolding him about poor customer service, illegal business activity, and so on. The cashier tells me to leave, and I do so because it's 9 p.m., and I really can't be bothered to deal with this. I hope that woman was kicked out or something, and if so, I'm sad I didn't witness it. But, dear gosh, I feel so sorry for that poor kid. Oh my goodness, what the heck is wrong with some people feeling the need to police things? I can't believe she asked the manager to see OP's personal ID card to check if the cashier and the manager were telling the truth about OP's age. Did Karen really try to outmanager the manager, though? I'm just baffled. I'm speechless. Next story. So, a woman comes up to the registers with a massive, beautiful area rug that we just got in. It's been priced at about $100, which is high for our usual thrift store prices, but still below retail. She doesn't have the "I want to speak to your manager" haircut that I can tell, mostly because it's tied up in a bun. The first words out of her mouth to my coworker are, "Excuse me, is there any wiggle room on this rug?" I told her, "No, I'm afraid not." She responded, "Well, the price is just too high, considering there's some damage to it." I told her the department head would have researched the value and made the adjustments. "I'm afraid I can't do anything against that." She responded, "Well, I need a rug to cover some damages my kids did to our carpets, and I need it by Tuesday for a house showing. Can I speak to your manager?" I told her, "Our store manager has gone home for the day, and our store is closed for Labor Day. I'm afraid if you want to talk about the price adjustment, you'll have to wait until Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. She said, "No, I'm afraid I can't wait that long." "Do you give military discounts?" I told her, "Unfortunately not, just the seniors discount, and that's only 10% off." She said, "10% isn't nearly low enough, I can pay you $50. I said, "Ma'am, we don't haggle." She said, "Well, the price is too high. Can I just buy it now and return it?" I replied, "No, we don't do refunds. You can donate it back, but you won't get any money for it." She said, "This is ridiculous." I told her the only option is to leave a message for the store manager and come back at 10 a.m. Tuesday to see if she'll lower the price for you. The lady started screaming and said, "No, I need it for Tuesday morning. That's not nearly enough time." She huffed and moved to the side to fiddle with her phone for about 10 minutes before coming back. She said, "All right, I'll pay your ridiculous price, but I'll need a pen and paper. I'm going to leave a message for your store manager to get a partial refund on this rug." My coworker started smirking and said, "Sure thing." The woman scribbled down her name, a number, and a complaining message about how the rug was too expensive and how she wanted a partial refund to reduce the cost to $50, as well as a military discount on top of that price reduction. She then paid for the rug and stomped out. We posted the message on the store manager's office door, along with a note saying that my coworker and I told her multiple times that we do not haggle or give refunds. Since I don't work on Tuesdays, I'm almost sorry I'll have to wait to hear about the incoming Category 5 tantrum that will likely ensue. Update: Thursday was my first day back, and I asked the store manager what happened. Here are the events that followed. The store manager came back to work and read the note. She laughed and shook her head in disbelief at the audacity of this entitled lady before opening her office and starting the daily tasks. She also checked the security feed for the day in question. At 10 a.m., on the dot when the store opened, the phone rang. Apparently, the entitled lady was not satisfied with simply leaving a note or waiting to be called back with an answer. Nope, she was on the phone with her spiel prepped and everything. The store manager politely listened to the whole song and dance, and amazingly the story remained consistent with no added details or claims that her son's cancer-ridden puppy needed the money back for life-saving miracle cures. Nope, she literally admitted again that she had used the rug to hide damage to the house that she showed that morning and just wanted her money back, or at least some of it. The entitled lady, winding down her story, said, "So, that's why I'm hoping you can work with me on this." The store manager said, "Actually, no, I can't." There was a bit of stunned silence, and she said, "I'm sorry, what do you mean you can't?" The store manager replied, "I can't. We can't do refunds at the store." The entitled lady whined and said, "But nobody said that. Nobody told me I couldn't return it or get a price adjustment." The store manager calmly said, "Ma'am, you were told that multiple times." The entitled lady went from 0 to 100 instantly and said, "Are you calling me a liar?" The store manager calmly said, "Ma'am, we have video and audio of the 20-minute-long argument you had with both of my employees. They both very clearly informed you multiple times that we don't haggle and we don't refund." There was silence. The store manager continued, Now, as I see it, you have a choice. You either keep the rug or donate it somewhere. Either way, we appreciate the money you've generously donated to all the homeless kitties and puppies at our local animal shelter. Have a nice day. Click. I was honestly kind of speechless at the epic beauty of this complete shutdown of the entitled lady. I don't know if my manager embellished what she said to this woman, but I think I'm going to pretend it's all true and hold that happy little thought in my heart for the rest of my days. Imagine a day where Karens learn to successfully haggle something and get the price they want. These stories are a perfect blend of entitlement, audacity, and satisfying comeuppance, resonating with the Karen-centric retail tales you've shared before. Here's my take on each. The beauty supply store incident is infuriating. The Karen's attempt to exploit her daughter's potential cancer for a discount on hair extensions is despicable. I admire the OP's restraint, given their own leukemia battle, and their sharp response exposing their personal struggles shut her down beautifully. Her stunned silence and quick exit were perfect. I've seen similar manipulations in retail, and it's disgusting when people use others' pain for personal gain. The big box store quinoa meltdown is classic entitlement. Demanding quinoa and calling employees maids is outrageous. I love how the OP's snap back, stuck-up jerk, stunned her into silence, and the manager's swift membership revocation was chef's kiss. It reminds me of your stories about customers overstepping and facing consequences, like the Kmart cashier incident. The late-night supermarket shopper is maddening. Lying about needing formula to dawdle in the wine section past closing? Unacceptable. I'm thrilled the OP's management jacket trick and ultimatum forced him out. The follow-up where he slunk away after being offered formula is hilarious. It echoes your tale of handling closing time Karens with clever tactics. The corner store alcohol saga is peak entitlement. Proposing to bypass Sunday liquor laws by leaving money? Absurd. I respect the OP's firm stance, risking their job to uphold the rules. Her huffing exit without an apology is typical Karen behavior, like your ex-Donald's story with unreasonable late orders. The entitled mother's house guilt trip is bizarre. Harassing the op for buying a house her son wanted? Delusional. I love how the OP's curt dismissal sent her speeding off. It's like your neighbor demanding pool access, pure entitlement. The Tesco ID Karen is ridiculous. Policing the OP's alcohol purchase and demanding their ID? Out of line. I'm glad the manager backed the cashier, and I feel for the kids stuck with her. It's akin to your stories of customers overstepping boundaries. The thrift store rug Karen's haggling attempt is infuriating. Admitting she used the rug to hide damage and still demanding a refund? Shameless. The manager's mic drop shutdown, citing video evidence, was glorious. It reminds me of your tales of retail workers standing firm against absurd demands. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our Entitled People series. If you enjoyed the stories, please give them a thumbs up. If you missed the last episode of Entitled People, go check it out. I'll see you in the next one. I love you.